Lalita Tharani of Collaborative Architecture, Huzefa Rangwala of Muse Lab, Shilpa Balavali of Studio Osmosis, Samir Balavali of Studio Osmosis, and the moderator for the session is Shami Goregaonkar of GA Design.
So since Aziz has already introduced everyone, let me just start. Today's discussion is not about building and design, it's about degendering architecture and design. It is a platform for all of us to share our personal experiences and that of our friends and colleagues also from the same field. Gender equality is a buzzword today, as it continues to be a cause for concern in many professions. So does gender bias really exist? On one hand, we have renowned architects like Zaha Hadid and Brinda Somaya, who have made a mark for themselves, and on the other hand, we have big Hollywood personalities fighting for equal pay rights as their male counterparts. So obviously there is something subtle going on somewhere. We may not have faced it directly, but it's time we sort of talk about it. We are here today to discuss if women need special recognition for their contribution to the architecture and design industry. So does recognition of talent have to be gender specific? Does it have to be gender specific is what we are here to discuss today. So I'll start with Lalita. So when you entered the field of architecture and design, like many years ago, just when you started off, what were your thoughts? What were you sort of thinking about it as is it a profession for men, is it a profession for women, or were you just passionate about it and you wanted to do it? Did you have anyone to influence your thoughts?
Just speak. I think you won't be able to get it.
I think they can all hear.
Yeah, I guess we can all hear, right? I think I'm loud enough anyways to be heard. Yeah, okay. I mean, yes, I was passionate to enter the profession, but from day one, I was in fact made aware that it's a profession which is highly male dominated, because when I kind of, my dad was an engineer, he wanted me to do engineering, and then at the end of the day, when I decided to get into this profession, he was very clear that he didn't want me to be a part of this profession because it was a male-dominated profession, and again, there was no working hour limits to the profession, because he was working with a lot of architects at that point in time, so as per his experience. So that was made aware to me even at the time when I decided to even, start studying. I mean, I started joining the school. But then, I was hell-bent, I did that, and when at the time when I kind of started working with a reputed firm, I worked with them for about 7 years before I started my own practice. At the time, I didn't really come across much while working with the firm that there is gender bias, but yeah, hierarchy was a part of the, was a problem at that point in time. It was not as per your credit or what your capabilities were. It was more to do with what the hierarchy was, and of course certain senior architects who told me that yes, they did face gender bias because they felt that the male counterparts were given better projects and bigger projects to handle, and this is something I heard from them. I didn't experience because at the point of time I was a junior architect in the firm. So yes, but then later on, starting my own firm, initially I started my own firm, and then after a year or so, met my partner and husband, and he had his own practice, and we kind of merged the two practices to form Collaborative Architecture. Prior to when I was having my own practice, what I felt and what I experienced was people gave me the project because of the capability of my design and my talent and things like that. Yes, I was questioned by the clients as to how do they, how I would kind of complete a certain project on time because it required late hours working, and many a times I was at site post midnight, and I used to be questioned as to how come you are standing over there. So those kind of issues were there, but they didn't, not award me the project because I happened to be a woman. But yes, later on when we had merged our practices, I could see a different kind of bias, coming up. At that point of time, when both of us practice together, when both of us put in our same effort, invariably the credit goes to the male counterpart of the firm. Okay, that's been the case. That's something that we have experienced.
And why do you think that is?
Well, of course, I mean, see, I don't know, somewhere I feel that when it's a women-oriented firm, like, for example, Brinda's or many other colleagues of ours who are women-led practices, it's a completely different thing, because at the point of time when a client goes to a particular firm, they know that it's led by a woman, they know that what their capabilities are, what their talents are. But when it comes to, a male and a female practice together, somehow we know that most clients end up being male rather than females. It only comes to it when you're doing a residential project and when the woman of the house is more comfortable talking to another
Or
woman.
kitchens. And
Yeah, for
toilets
kitchens and other things like that, or so to say finishes, where they feel that women have a better touch than the men have. But as far as the technical aspects are concerned, they always want to talk to the man. And more often than not, they always feel, oh yeah, maybe architecture, it's a more, industrious kind of a profession, so maybe a male is more apt to handle that part of the project.
Were you made to feel uncomfortable at any point?
Not uncomfortable.
Were you undervalued at any time?
Yes, undervalued, yes, because at many point of time, the client would say, oh yeah, I'm sorry, I'm naming my husband over here, Mujib's project, so yeah, Mujib's design, so it never comes that you guys are a collaborative architectural design. It always is put forth like that, so which of course is undermining your capabilities, undermining your work, undermining your talent at the point of time. And at many point of times that even if certain part of project which would be probably predominantly handled by me would be credited completely to him. So that happens. So it's happened quite often. It's happened in media. It happens that, I mean, it's not just my experience. It's been an experience of many of the male women led colleagues. In fact, we were talking about it yesterday night also with Santa. There have been instances where we send our profile together, we send our photographs together. There have been instances where a joint photograph has been cut and only his photograph has been put. So these have been instances.
So have you reached out to the people who've done that?
Of course.
I'm
sorry, I'm not a person to sit back and say, okay, yes,
so
this
what,
happened. So
what was the explanation you got?
No explanation, no explanations given. I, in fact, have reached out so much. I've written to all media. In fact, somehow, funnily, most of our magazines are led by women editors. I'm sure all of us are aware of that. And, well, I did reach out to them. I wrote a long letter to almost all of them, citing this instance, citing many other instances which have happened. I wrote to them, I said, you guys are all women and you lead the magazines. And somehow, why is it that every single time when a media portrays a practice which is led together, it's always that you focus on the male counterpart, and this is what has happened. So, not many, in fact, I would say 90% did not bother to reply to the mail, 10% did, 10% regretted what is happening in the industry, 1% took some action on it. So that's what it is.
So your voice was heard only by 1%.
Yes.
That's what you're trying to say.
Yes.
That's very unfortunate. Let's go back to our studies and college years, and like you, all three of you, Samir, Shilpa and Huzaifa, you've all studied overseas. So when you were studying architecture and design, did you feel any kind of a bias, or did you feel that the ratio of boys versus girls is sort of tilted, or something that you thought is not a woman's profession, or did you get any of those kind of feelings at that point?
So I think back in college we were around 60 students, and probably 75% of the strength was guys.
This is in India?
In India, I'm talking about India. And interiors was seen, I mean, it was always, like the girls' profession, whereas architecture is sort of, the macho profession. That's how it all.
Why do you think that is?
I guess I don't know. It was just perceived like that. It was just that again as she said that interiors. So it was always interior was perceived as interior decoration. I mean, we talk about decor. It's more about accessorizing cushions, fabrics, that sort of thing, right? So it always that is where sort of the perception of these two I would say very distinct facets of design were sort of looked at. And I think when it came to since we are discussing this a little earlier as well, when it came to girls in the class itself, I mean, in terms of presentation, okay, there was certain favoritism towards girls also. So that's where they benefited. I mean, because
favoritism
from the faculty,
male?
yes, from
male
the male faculty, yes,
Okay.
and I think everyone experienced that at some point or the other. That there was, I mean, so no matter how good your portfolio is, but maybe if you're a girl and you probably dressed up a little well for the presentation, there was that sort of favoritism. So that's where the girls benefited, I would say, in education. But when back in the US, I mean, we were far more smaller. I mean, the setup was much smaller. So we were probably 12 students in a class. I didn't see any bias over there. I mean, I think everyone was treated equal. Everyone was treated for their skills. I mean, so if you did well, you were graded accordingly. So never really experienced any bias over there.
And you, as a woman?
So I would say during the college years, I just probably go back to a little bit over the background. No, I think it's fine. So I think all of this talking about male, female, gender bias, whether it's architecture, design, or any other industry, it also comes back to India as a country, culture, where the entire gender discussion is taken as a country also. Where there is a certain perception that the woman is the one running the home or taking care of kids, and so that is what has probably been happening since decades ago. And then you still have a percentage of women who go against that rule or did that maybe 2 or 3 decades ago, or maybe 4 or 5 decades ago also. But that percentage was smaller then, and that has increased to a huge extent over that period. But in a larger part across the country, in smaller towns, in villages, in a lot of communities. I come from a community which is a little bit more orthodox as a community. So just the fact that you may be studying or going abroad to study without getting married or without going with the male counterpart itself is a big deal. So it starts right there. I mean, it starts like a little
So you
seed.
think that kind of an attitude wouldn't have been there for a male child?
Definitely not. The male is in fact encouraged even if he doesn't want to go. Or if he's not interested in studying or pursuing architecture. Why do you want to do interior design? Why don't you take up architecture? So, or okay,
So like
maybe
you said,
for-
interior design is
yes. So
meant to be a
so
woman's
so there is a perception that maybe even after doing 5 years or 4 years of studying, a certain percentage of the women may not practice to that extent. So the perception for them is that why maybe spend so much time or money, or so that has been there. I think there is a lot of change that we are seeing today when it comes to the education bit, and girls and women are very independent now. So you're seeing that whole difference. But back then also when we were in architecture, the background perception was there that am I going to really be practicing, or am I going to go abroad and study or practice or start my own setup? Will I be able to do that by myself? So there were those kind of doubts.
You also said something about your professor making a remark once about...
Yes, so this was not my professor, but a friend of mine who was studying design. The professor had a group which was mainly girls, and he actually had a comment saying that I'm actually almost wasting time teaching y'all, because probably most of y'all will be getting married to a B, C, and wasting the seat and not practicing at all. And this is, I'm talking about 15 years back. So, I mean, that perception is there that, are we really educating them to do something beyond this, or are they just learning for the sake of learning? So there is a lot of change that you're seeing today, and I think it's only because the women are out there and saying that, look, I can do it, and this is us. You have to take it. So
Samir, you have to say something on this. What do you think of it? I mean, when you met Shilpa and you started your practice together, did you at any point think that once we have kids or whatever, she's gonna have to take the backseat and I'll run the show? Did that happen?
I'll just put it. I'll just touch upon something which Shilpa just said. It essentially is a lot to do with the culture that we come in. I mean, to the question that you posed about what happened internationally, I mean, there is, while studying, we didn't face or we didn't see anything. In fact, they were all treated as equal. But when you go in a firm, then the ballgame changes because it's more corporate. There are a lot many different equations. But if I look at home or when we came back, I'll actually go back to say my upbringing or the family that I grew up in. All women everyone was working. Like my mom worked throughout bringing me up. I mean, whether it was, so my father encouraged my mom to work. Everyone in my family, all women work. I mean, whether it is they are working in a bank or wherever they are working, but they are all independent working women. That was my parents' side. But when I met Shilpa, I mean, and her, because I mean, we are very different culturally, but it's not the same in her case. I mean, it comes from a certain upbringing. So the thing is, that value of gender bias actually starts right at home, where the encouragement or when we ask someone, why aren't you standing up to yourself? It is because you're not allowed to stand up for yourself, or where I mean, I've seen that it's simple. You just stand up for yourself. Why not? I mean, you should be working, or you should be doing this, but there are other cultures. They would say, no, you don't ask. We'll deal with this later. I mean, that's always a hush thing which happens, and I think it's time that our generation now should break that barrier. And
so that was my next question. Where does this gender bias start from?
I think
and
it starts
what
right
should a woman do to make herself feel equal? In fact, I would like to ask that to the guys. What should a woman do? Women know what they have to do.
No, I don't think a woman needs to do anything to make her feel. She has to do that. I mean, she doesn't have to justify it because she's a woman. She has to, do something more to be at par with a man, because she has been through the same education. She has given those 5 years to architecture. She has done her masters. And with the male counterpart does the same thing, then why does she have to do something more to prove herself? She's equally talented. In fact, in some cases, she's more talented. Then why should she go through that rigmarole? So I believe that she should not. In fact, she herself has to decide for herself that she should not put herself in the shoes of making that extra effort to prove herself. Yeah.
But like Lalita said very clearly, there are issues not from what we portray. I mean, it could be internally where maybe Mujib is, or maybe when I am, I would tell we both will go together. But at some point, it's also the client eventually look at a significant counterpart. They'll probably just look at the male.
They just ban
for during the construction or something like that.
I mean, exactly.
or for some or something like that. Even if we go together for a meeting, we've seen that, and it's something that has to change.
So how do you change that? I mean, you cannot choose the client, right? He comes to you.
No, it's
could be
basically
male, he could be female, he could be
So it's basically where I just have to stop going, or you just have to go. Why? You just have to go. Once,
Exactly.
twice, but you just have to.
Yeah, what you say is
My
correct.
point is, it's there.
Yeah, absolutely. It's there, and it's like how you handle it is something that, as you said, you can't choose your clients. All you can do is manage them and handle them. And that's, as he put it rightly, that's where you have to, from your end, as a firm, as a couple, as partners, you have to portray to them that, look here, we are both equal in whatever we do. So instead of just being addressing me, either whether it's me or whether it's him, so we say, okay, the next person, that's the person who should go more often, or probably with those kind of clients, you should push the other person more often so that they understand that we look at it equally.
So basically,
And so
an extra effort is required.
Yeah, extra
To get
effort
that
is
attention
required.
or to get
Having said that, we've also had clients where I don't think it's, yes, there is the male and female, but then there's also a person that you are, right? So I am a different personality and I may have different strengths and weaknesses, and my partner, and this is specifically in terms of partners, and it could be a male partner or a female partner also. But you may have different strengths and weaknesses also, so which is probably separately, because we have our own personal strengths also in certain
So you bring
convincing
pool in your
parts.
talent and
So
sort of take on
it's
project.
not necessarily always looked at in the in that sense, but yes, I mean, I think that intrinsically also, we are equals, but we are still different, males and females. So you may have certain instinctive strengths as a female versus a certain instinctive strength as a male, and they could be interchanged at any point of time, depending on your personality also. Right?
So, if there was a male client and a female client, would you automatically go and say, okay, I do work, I'm comfortable working with her than working?
That is, yeah.
No, because there's been instance where Shilpa is listening to you.
It's actually become the other way around. Sometimes, I mean, they may have a certain, like, no, okay, this is how, I may get into an argument and I'll say, I don't want to do that, so why don't you take it over? So it's also about your connection with that client, or, how the meetings have gone and all of that stuff. So,
But I don't think so just because there's a male or a
Yeah.
female client coming in and we feel okay, more comfortable working with a women, female counterpart client. No, I don't think so. Because
Yeah.
for us it's the work, it's the profession. It's about designing. So I don't think so. That kind of choice automatically comes to us.
And what about when you're recruiting? When you're hiring people, do you look at gender or do you just look at education, experience, skill set, and salary?
So I would say that right now, currently, we actually have only women in our office, except Samir and maybe the office boy. So, and it is not necessarily a conscious decision. It's been that the applicants or whoever we get and the portfolios that we are scanning, so that means there are women who are more talented than the boy applicants that we have received, and that's the reason they are being hired. And I think in our practice over the last decade, we have found women to be more committed and sincere in, especially the younger generation. Maybe the reason that they actually want to prove, I don't know, maybe that's the reason, one of the reasons. But we've actually had that experience over the years, and it just so happens that we actually have only all women.
But is it a conscious decision?
That's what I said, it's
to only
not-
ask for female
No,
applicants?
not at all.
And it's been over a few years we've got applicants from across the country. We've got girls from Kerala, Tamil Nadu, now from Jaipur.
Who are willing to relocate?
They relocate.
We have
And-
people
and-
working.
And we discuss and talk with them. It's so different for them to come from where they are and to live in this city. And they really, there are some talks about the city, but it's all about what it is. And our entire endeavor is, when we speak to them, is that we tell them, you call up the contractor, you call up the client, you call up the vendor. Or when you make a call, or if they don't give you, if they come back and say, sir, वो मुझे जवाब नहीं दे रहा है, then we have to tell them that, boss, you can't come and tell this to me. You stand up, you pick up the phone right now and tell them that you want it now in 2 hours. Or it won't
You
be good for
encourage
you.
them to sort of
No,
call the
this
shots.
is exactly. So the point is that we have to make sure that they don't come back to us. They have to stand up for it.
But is it because they are women or is it because they are junior staff?
No, but it has to start early. Whether they're junior staff, unless and until they don't, they don't get it now, or the freedom or the choice of taking it in your own hands and doing it has to start now. And then when they go out or wherever they go out next, it'll be easier for them. It is right now when
Absolutely,
they're
they
in
need
the
to be
interning.
encouraged. They need to be
When the interning itself, they need to feel that they can take power in their hands, they can take their decisions. Because if they're not allowed to take decisions, then they feel that they were not given a chance. We've got some, we had some, when we hired someone who'd been working for 2 years in a big firm, but they come to us and they actually come down and said, in those 2 years, I never had a chance to go to the site or to take decisions. And when they have moved on, they've actually come back and told us that these 2 years I've learned more than what I've learned like in 5 years ago. And that for us is like, we've done our job. I mean, we know that wherever they are ready to take it. And I think that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's a good thing. So, Lavina, you have a practice here and in a
Yes.
relatively smaller town. So, is there a difference between
Yeah, I mean,
employees?
having a practice in a metro city like Bombay and a third tier city in the country, we of course face very different kind of problems in the two offices. Till I would say our practice has been now for the past 15 years, and I would say till the last 12 years, probably our firm was also all women firm, except for Mujib. And yes, of course, an office boy. There was no men in the office. They were all women. And again, it was not a conscious decision. It all came, as Shilpa rightly said, that it's all to do with the kind of resumes we were getting. It was all to do with the kind of sincerity, the dedication, and what we saw in them. I would not be able to say that today because unfortunately today it's an all-male thing, except for me being the female in the office in Bombay also. That again did not change because of any kind of conscious decision. It's just that the last 3 years, the kind of portfolios or the kind of resumes that we got, somehow it was more to do with the right kind of talent being in the office. It was just precisely on that. And in the last 12 years that we experienced the same thing. The women who we employed, or whether they were interning or they were employees, they were all not just so dedicated. They were there to do the work at any point of time that needed to be done. They were pretty hardworking. They were extremely dedicated, and I could see that because today a few of them have started their own, practices, and we can see that being realized in their own practices. And we can see that they have taken the things from the learning of our office and then put it into their own practice, and which we, again, as you said, that we find it very satisfying and very good. But then unfortunately this is not the case when we work in Calicut or in Kerala. It's a very different, it's more to do with the culture of the place over there, and I face that when we deal with the clients also, not just while employing people over there.
They're not used to seeing you as the boss. Your
Well,
clients?
no, the clients automatically, because the culture is a very, very orthodox culture, and specifically in Calicut is a predominantly Muslim community, and all these people, specifically, a lot of our clients come from a place which is a kind of a village known as Malappuram, and all these people are highly, highly orthodox. For
That is
them,
very odd considering Kerala has the highest female
yes,
literacy ratio.
exactly,
So that's
exactly.
really very ironic.
To tell you,
say that.
the funniest part is when I will be talking to the clients, and somehow when their wives come in, supposedly well-educated, well-traveled male members will not be able to converse with me in English, but their wives will be absolutely comfortable doing that, and they would be far more comfortable, conversing in English, whereas these guys would be completely flabbergasted and in awe of speaking in English, and probably because of that maybe one reason communicating more with Mujib because he can speak the local language, I cannot. And not just that aspect, because they're not used to seeing their women folk doing anything more than coming out of the house only when they have to go out somewhere. Otherwise, they're in the home, they're just about cooking, taking care of the kids, and that's the functions they see women performing. For them, even though their wives are more educated than they are at many point of time, but the only functions that they perform is cooking and taking care of the kids. For them, the women's job is precisely at home, and for them it doesn't. For them, they cannot associate a woman going to site, standing when the construction is happening, with all the males around, and she's the only woman on site, and giving instructions to them, and those guys doing the job. So for them, they have not seen that, and probably they cannot associate with that. Maybe that is one reason of it. So the culture is that way. Moreover, when we started employing the staff in the Calicut office, also we, of course, gave the equal opportunity to both the males and the females. But over a period of time, we realized that it has become a bit difficult to keep the women as an employee than the male. Reason being again to do with culture, because unfortunately Kerala has this very funny kind of a culture that even when a woman is studying, a girl is studying, she's married off in between her studies. It's never that they allow her to complete her education, whether be it engineering, medicine, or so. If she'll get married, she'll probably bear a child, and she'll be appearing for her medical exam or her architecture, last year of architecture
But
or thesis.
that's a good sign, isn't it?
That's a good sign, but the problem is it stops there. It doesn't go beyond that.
So
She
there is no
appears for the
career
exam.
afterwards.
Yeah, she appears for the exam, and that's it. Beyond that, it doesn't go. So that's where my problem lies, And I mean, it's fine. It's good as a culture that they allow the women to study, but then post that what? Why does it stop there? If you are so open-minded about letting them study, why not let them take their careers forward? So that, of course, slowly changing, but long way
So
to go.
does that result
Long
in
way
you
to go.
employing more male
Yes,
staff?
exactly. Because what happened was that when we used to have women employees, and then it used to be that we get a call from her dad and saying, the moment we get a call from his dad, we know what's happening the next day. Next day is very funny color. Everyone is anyways in Gulf, so they will be finding a right match for the girl, and I found a boy, and he's the best boy. He's here for a week's time, and I need to get my girl married tomorrow. And that's it. She may be handling a project, she may be in the midst of something, and expectations there. And for us, the continuity of the project is lost. For us, and she will not even have sufficient time to hand over the project to the next person in the office. She has to leave there and there. So for us, it became a big problem due to that reason. One. Second, we work across the country, not just in Kerala and in Mumbai or around Mumbai. So for us, when it came to the time of traveling to a site or traveling for a meeting with a client to a particular city, we used to get again calls from the parents of the girl saying, "Oh, my daughter cannot travel alone." So either you send another male from the office who the parents so-called trust, okay, in their eyes, and they need to go together. And for us, we have to be answerable to the client as to why we need two people to travel from the office when the person handling the project is completely different and the other person has nothing to do with the project. And why is it that the client has to take that burden, or even the office has to take the burden? So these became big problems, and slowly, it came to a point where we had to take a call that until they cannot give us a commitment of certain time, we shall not be able. No,
Actually,
not
we have. I
think
mean,
it's very
not
similar
for
for
us.
us.
like I think that, yes, I would say 75% of women are doing probably what they want to do, but there is a lot of women and a lot of girl employees that we've had where any emergency in the house, any emergency, they have to be at home. It's not that anybody else in the family will take over, it's the female who will have to stay back, whether it's hospital, whether it's something else, marriage. Yes, that has also
Basically,
happened.
the role of the caretaker,
Caretaker
the caregiver has to be
automatically
done by a
comes,
woman.
yes, so she has to give up or sacrifice that particular job aspect in her career to sort of manage many more multi.
And I think they do it brilliantly because
They
they
do it
come back to work
brilliantly,
after
but
that.
they do it brilliantly, but sometimes it becomes a very long break.
Hmm.
They cannot get back, and then it's a big setback for them, which then sort of in the longer run affects their career. And then after a point, they get a little bit, demotivated to go back and start work too. So like there have been employees who have got married, and then we actually told them take a break and come back after marriage.
Unable to do so.
It does not happen because of I need to only work between this to this time, or I need to do XYZ thing also other than that. So then they start to just find convenient jobs
Right.
which is,
That I agree to an extent. We also had employees who were super dedicated women.
and these are very, very good, dedicated,
Yeah,
very
super
talented.
dedicated, talented, and absolutely great employees. And in fact, colleagues, I would call them. And after marriage, we have had this. Okay, I have this problem. My mother-in-law has this problem with me, and so I can't do this. And yeah, we have had those instances. But we have always encouraged them to come back, and it's been sometimes successful, sometimes not successful.
So here I would like to share one of an experience I had in my office. We have a practice of like 4 people. There's 4 of us, Rajan and Sachin, who are the company directors, and there's Ritu and myself, who are the design directors of the interior design department. And we have a staff of, it's a mixed bag, it's male, female, and it's not a conscious decision that we want only male draftsmen or only female interior designers. It's actually a mixed bag of 40 people. Day before yesterday, I was speaking to one of my very senior architects in office, and she's handling a project at Karjat. Okay, so she had to go there for a slab check, which is on the 5th floor. Okay, now as architects, we all know when it's a slab check, it's a raw building, there's stuff lying about and all that. So she went for the meeting. She was there at 9:30 sharp, and all the consultants were male. And she was asked by one person, "Will you be able to manage the slab check? Will you be able to go up?" And she said yes to that person, but when she was talking to me, she said, "I didn't understand where that came from. Was that man trying to be genuinely concerned, or was he trying to undervalue me by asking me, oh, are you going to be able to go up on the 5th floor?"
Physically.
So yeah, so as a man, what do you think? Would you ask a question like that, and with what intention do you want to show your concern? I mean, is it genuine concern, or would you think, oh my God, 5th floor? And she told me that I have been on this project from day one. I know there is a slab check. I know I have been called just for the slab check. So when I'm turning up, it obviously means I'm prepared to go up on the 5th floor. So why did that man ask me that question? So I said, maybe he's asking out of genuine concern and not because he's trying to undervalue me or anything like that. But she said, for a second she didn't like that. Because if she couldn't have done it, she would have taken someone else along. So
No, I think that's absolutely wrong way to ask a question like that. If it is out of concern, then it's a different thing. But then it should also, if there's an older gentleman standing over there, and if he also possibly can't make it, then I should also ask him.
yeah.
So because if I only asked a lady, then it's like a gender bias thing, whether I'm mocking her or whether I'm undervaluing her or sort of challenging her to be physically able to climb, those 5 floors or whatever it is. But again, I just want to make a point. Like, we actually got one of our very close friends to come back to Bombay and work with us, and this was back. And her first site visit, when she went on site, and I made sure that I sort of got her to go to site by herself. And she came back and she said that I was scared on site. I said, "What happened?" He's like, "No, those guys just were staring at me." I'm like, which guy? The client or who else? Because the client also, she was just, I don't know whether it was the whole transitioning from the US back to Bombay which sort of shook her. But I wanted to give her that sort of, that shock so that she knows that she's now working in the cities. And I had to then, make her, I had to sit her down, I had to calm her down, I had to sort of, consciously sort of, talk to her about what went wrong and then it took like, that hour-long chat to get her out of that zone. And today she just whoops everyone on site, and she is like our rock star. So I think it just maybe it was again like I said, it was like a reverse culture shock for her, to experience that. So, but it does happen, and today I think she's one of our biggest assets, and it's just about how you mold that person. So
but it is a fact that in our profession, a lot of consultants are male, right? So if you're a woman and you're prepared to go to site, then you have to be prepared to deal with all the males that are around. And one might stare, like 2 seconds longer than somebody else. But is that something that should make us feel uncomfortable?
Not at all, I guess.
it's about you just ignoring it and getting done with your work and making sure that things happen.
Yeah, I've recently I was in a meeting with 25 males in the room, conference room, me being the only female in there, and that included clients, consultants, MEP guys, structure, and all of the works. But I don't think that should, it shouldn't matter whether you're a male architect or a female architect, as long as you can bring that same thing to the table, the value that you're really talking about. Yes, you will get questions, because that's the kind of culture that we've come from, or as a country also, I feel. In fact, I wouldn't say even country, because it's a global problem. It also happens in the US. It happens everywhere, where we are saying that if they are developed countries, there are a lot of women bias even abroad. When we were working, in the work scenario, you do see it. You do see that when there are two positions, of a male and a female, and there is a promotion to be given, there is always going to be a thing where maybe the male got an upper hand, not knowing that maybe the female may not come back to this office the next year. So, what's the point of doing it? So we've seen that in the US also. And but I think you just have to face
It's happened
it.
more most obviously when Pritzkers were awarded, in case of Robert Venturi without Dennis Scott Brown, and also very recently in 2012, I think, Wong Shu without his wife. Whereas it's just a precisely 4 people office, including Wong Shu, his wife, and 2 other employees. So she was not so much even mentioned in the award. So I think this is a global problem. This is not a problem. Yes, of course, the culture plays a role. As I said, we can see the difference between a metro city and a third-tier city. But yes, it's more to do globally rather than just about the culture.
Giving me eyes, so I think we need to wind up. So one last question: if you find any sort of discrimination, like a gender bias or a gender discrimination in your office, what would you do to eliminate it? Or how would you tackle it? I'd like all of you to have an answer. 5 minutes.
We started half early.
No, I think I would definitely make them sit down and explain to them that is not how we function as an office. Because our office also has been, we've always employed women, and this is the first time, I think, in our 6-year practice that we've actually appointed an architect, a male architect. And if at all something like this happens, then I think it's just important to make them sit down and understand that this is not how we function in terms of society, in terms of community, or even in terms of our industry. I guess that's the most important.
I think, if you're talking about in the office, I don't think there should be a male designer and a female designer. You are a designer and that's it. That's where it starts and stops. And it's about
so
your
the hierarchy
talent.
can be about
Yeah.
talent or
If there is a
position.
hierarchy and position, it's because you're talented. But it has nothing to do with the fact that you're a male or a female. It shouldn't matter. In fact, I don't even think that, we are doing conferences and talks and everything on women architects, but I just think it's architects.
Yeah.
Why should it even be women architects?
Exactly.
The day we stop talking about these issues, that means there is no issue.
I agree absolutely.
Well, firstly, as I've told you, we used to, for a long time, have only women in the office anyways. And recently we had a point where we had one woman, and other than me, and the rest of them were all males as staff. And we often have these kind of discussions that why, we sit across after lunch sometimes and have discussions as to what each one finds that somebody's weak point or somebody's strong point, and if for the weak point, what weak point, and why you should say, okay, this person does not belong to the team. Okay, so at that point of time, all these guys kind of got together and shot down the woman, saying that, okay, this is the one who should not be a part of the team. And we were quite amazed, because she was a very, very strong woman and she could stand by her own. She faced all that and she, stood up to all that. And again, made a point that yes, and which of course, I was the only other woman over there to support her in that. But she was very, very clear in saying that why she needs to be over there. She's more deserving rather than any one of them present over there.
So it's purely based on talent.
Yes, purely based on talent. It's nothing to do with a gender or even so to say how many years a person has been with us. For us, it is purely on talent. So yeah, and she could do absolutely well in the office. So that's what.
I think the whole, like I said, what we try to do is basically what we talk about empowerment. For a small office, it's easier to handle this discrimination. It becomes more tedious when it's a multi-layered, large organization with very. I think it's not just design; it just sort of permeates everywhere in across platforms in different workplaces as well. I think A is talking, but B is also, like I said, it has to start at ground root level, from home, culture, then your workplace where you start first working, and when you're at the first place where you work, when you're studying and you come out of that environment of being protected, you come to workforce, and that's where you understand your responsibility and the power that you get. That from there it can only increase. So it's basically the indiscrimination lies because there's someone holding back. I mean, I'm sure if it was one guy working with 5 women, that guy would also feel like he'll definitely feel worried. It's the same way the other way around. It's just which part is more majority. There has been instances where someone said Studio Osmosis only hires girls, and I don't know why is that, but
it does have only girls.
But it
right?
has only girls, and
Yeah,
we
that's
feel like
what-
it's across the thing. But what I think only going ahead is where it all has to start at ground root level, culture, home, first workplace, and then on it's up to the woman to actually take that charge.
Yeah, and
Because
like
you're-
Shilpa said, why do we have to project ourselves as
No.
female architect or a
Nothing.
female
It is
designer?
you
You
as
are
an
a
individual.
professional
Correct.
female.
Yeah,
That's it.
Absolutely.
So yeah. So I guess that's it.
We don't ask to be the female counterparts of anything like that.
Yeah, we don't have to be counterparts of
Yeah.
anything. It's like being a doctor. You're a doctor. You're a
Absolutely.
doctor.
Well, there are discussions where for the awards also in Hollywood or Bollywood, the best actor in male category and best actor in female category. There's been discussions that why do we need these two categories? Isn't it just best actor? I mean,
Yeah, I mean, it has progressed from actress to female actor now, so it's no longer even actress. So, anyway, thanks for joining me for this discussion. Sameer, Lalita, Shilpa, and Huzaifar. That's it. Thank you all for listening.
Thank you.